The kitchen clock read 2:17 a.m. when I found myself staring at Clara's work phone, abandoned on our granite countertop, like evidence at a crime scene. My wife had supposedly left for a 7-day wellness retreat in Vermont, but something felt wrong. Clara never went anywhere without that phone. It was practically surgically attached to her hand. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Eliot Brenner, 43 years old, and I've spent the last 20 years building houses with my own two hands. I know when something doesn't fit right, whether it's a crooked door frame or a lying wife. Tonight, every instinct I'd honed as a contractor was screaming that the foundation of my marriage was about to collapse. The house felt different without Clara's constant chatter about office politics and her ambitious plans to climb the corporate ladder at Henderson & Associates. She worked in human resources, which always struck me as ironic since she had trouble relating to actual humans unless they could advance her career. I picked up her phone, expecting it to be locked, but the screen lit up immediately. Clara had always been careless with technology. The first thing I saw made my blood run cold. A text message from someone named G, sent just an hour ago. Missing you already, babe. Can't wait for tomorrow night. My hands started shaking as I scrolled through more messages. There were dozens of them, going back months. Photos that made my stomach turn, plans for secret meetings, intimate details about their relationship that felt like knives twisting in my chest. 22 years of marriage, and this was how I found out my wife was cheating. I set the phone down carefully, my contractor's training kicking in. When you discover structural damage, you don't panic. You assess the full extent of the problem before deciding how to fix it, or in this case, how to tear the whole thing down. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Patterson, our 70-year-old neighbor, who seemed to know everything that happened on Maple Street before it actually occurred. Eliot, honey, I saw Clara leave last night around 10 p.m. She got into a silver BMW with a man I didn't recognize. Is everything all right? I typed back. Thanks, Mrs. P. Clara mentioned her spa had valet service. Must be getting fancy. But inside, I was calculating. Clara had told me her retreat started today, but she'd actually left last night. With him. With G. I walked through our house. The house I'd renovated with my own hands, installing custom cabinets in the kitchen, refinishing the hardwood floors, building the deck where we used to have coffee on Sunday mornings. Every room held memories that now felt contaminated. In our bedroom, I opened Clara's dresser drawers, looking for clues. Her favorite silk pajamas were missing, along with the expensive lingerie I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. But tucked behind her winter sweaters, I found something that made everything click into place, a second phone. This one was locked, but Clara had always been predictable. I tried her birthday, then mine, then our anniversary. Nothing. Then I remembered how she always complained about forgetting passwords, so she used the same one for everything. Their wedding date. Wrong. I tried the date we first met, the date we bought the house, even our dog's birthday from years ago. Finally, in frustration, I tried the most obvious one, 12:34. The phone unlocked. What I found inside that second phone destroyed any remaining illusions about my marriage. Months of explicit messages, photos, and detailed plans for their affair. The man's name was Gavin Miller, and from his messages, I could tell he was married too. He was a real estate agent, cocky and smooth-talking, exactly the type Clara had always been attracted to before she settled for a stable contractor like me. They'd been meeting at the Riverside Motel every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 months. Clara had been telling me she was working late on important projects, and I'd believed her because I wanted to support her career ambitions. The most recent messages revealed their plan, a week-long getaway to a cabin in New Hampshire, not Vermont. They were going to use this time to decide whether to leave their respective spouses and start fresh together. I sat on the edge of our bed, holding both phones, feeling something cold and calculating settle in my chest. Clara thought she was so clever, planning her new life while keeping me as her safety net. She'd underestimated me, though. She saw me as just a blue-collar worker, too simple to figure out her sophisticated deception. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I'd built my construction business from nothing, outmaneuvering competitors who thought they were smarter than me. I knew how to plan, how to execute, and how to make sure every detail was perfect. If Clara wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real strategy looked like. But first, I needed more information. The next morning, I called my foreman, Mitch Rodriguez, a guy who'd been with me for 15 years and knew how to keep his mouth shut. Mitch was the kind of friend who'd help you move a body without asking questions, though I wasn't planning anything that dramatic. "Boss, you sound like hell," Mitch said when he arrived at my house an hour later. "What's going on?" I handed him Clara's phones and watched his expression change as he scrolled through the messages. "Jesus, Eliot. I'm sorry, man. What do you want to do about it?" "I want to know everything about Gavin Miller," I said. "Where he works, where he lives, what kind of car he drives, who his wife is. Everything." Mitch grinned, and I remembered why we worked so well together. He understood that sometimes you had to get creative to solve problems. We spent the morning researching Gavin online. His real estate website painted him as a successful agent specializing in luxury properties. His social media showed a perfect life, expensive suits, fancy dinners, photos with a blonde woman who was apparently his wife, Jennifer. "Look at this guy," Mitch said, pointing at Gavin's LinkedIn profile. 28 years old and acts like he owns the world. His bio says he's the youngest top producer at Pinnacle Realty. "Youth and arrogance," I replied. "That's going to make this easier." I found Jennifer Miller's Facebook page, which was public and full of happy family photos. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital and seemed genuinely nice. Definitely didn't deserve what her husband was putting her through. "So what's the plan?" Mitch asked. "First we gather evidence, then we level the playing field." I drove to the bank and discovered that Clara had been slowly draining our joint savings account over the past 3 months, transferring money to a personal account I didn't know existed. She'd taken nearly $15,000, money we'd saved for the kitchen renovation she'd been asking for. At the credit card company, I learned she'd opened 2 new cards without telling me, running up charges at expensive restaurants, hotels, and lingerie stores. The dates matched perfectly with her supposed late work nights. By afternoon, I had a complete picture of Clara's deception. She hadn't just been cheating, she'd been systematically preparing to leave me while stealing our money to fund her affair. That evening, I changed the locks on our house. Then I called the credit card companies and removed Clara as an authorized user on all our accounts. I transferred the remaining money from our joint account to my personal account and canceled her access to our shared credit cards. If Clara wanted independence, she was about to get it. My phone rang around 9 p.m. Clara's name appeared on the screen, and I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Eliot? Thank God you picked up. I've been trying to use my credit card, but it's not working. Can you call the bank?" Her voice sounded strained, probably because she was trying to sound normal while Gavin was listening. "That's strange," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Where are you calling from? I thought there was no cell service at your retreat." "Oh, I drove into town to get some supplies. The retreat is very rustic." "I'm sure it is. How's the meditation going?" "It's wonderful, very peaceful. But about the credit card?" "I'll look into it tomorrow," I lied. "Enjoy your spiritual journey, honey." After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete control. For the first time in our marriage, I held all the cards, and Clara didn't even know the game had changed. But I wasn't done gathering information. I needed to understand exactly who I was dealing with. The next day was Saturday, which meant I could do some real detective work without missing any job sites. I drove to Pinnacle Realty, where Gavin worked, and parked across the street to observe. The office was in an upscale strip mall, all glass and chrome, trying hard to look sophisticated. I watched as employees arrived, noting their routines. Gavin pulled up at exactly 10 a.m. in a silver BMW, the same car Mrs. Patterson had seen Clara get into. He was exactly what I'd expected: tall, well-dressed, the kind of guy who spent more on his haircut than I spent on groceries. He walked with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences for his actions. I followed him at a distance as he went about his Saturday routine: coffee at an expensive cafe, shopping at stores I couldn't afford, lunch at a restaurant where the cheapest entree cost $40. Everything about him screamed privilege and entitlement. Around 2 p.m., I drove to the Riverside Motel, the place where Clara and Gavin had been meeting. It was exactly the kind of place you'd expect for an affair: cheap, anonymous, the kind of establishment that didn't ask questions as long as you paid in cash. I talked to the desk clerk, a bored-looking kid who perked up when I slipped him a $20 bill. "I'm trying to track down my business partner," I lied smoothly. "Tall guy, drives a silver BMW, usually comes here with a brunette woman on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons." The kid nodded immediately. "Yeah, I know them. Room 237, every week like clockwork. They always pay cash and tip well." "How long have they been coming here?" "Maybe 4 months. They seem really into each other, if you know what I mean." I thanked him and left, my anger building with each new detail. 4 months of systematic deception. 4 months of Clara coming home to me after spending afternoons with Gavin, pretending everything was normal. That evening, I called my sister-in-law, Sophie, Clara's younger sister, who worked in marketing for a tech company. Sophie had always liked me, and she had no idea about Clara's affair. "Eliot, how are you? Clara mentioned she was at some retreat this week." "Yeah, she's finding herself," I said, letting a note of sarcasm creep into my voice. "Listen, Sophie, I need to ask you something. Has Clara seemed different lately? Distant?" There was a pause. "Actually, yes. She's been secretive about her phone, and she's been buying new clothes, getting her hair done more often. I thought maybe she was planning a surprise for you." "Something like that," I agreed. "Has she mentioned anyone named Gavin?" Another pause, longer this time. "Gavin Miller, the real estate agent?" My pulse quickened. "You know him?" "Clara introduced us at a party last month. She said he was helping you guys look for investment properties. Seemed like a smooth talker, not really your type of person." "No," I said quietly. "Not my type at all." After I hung up, I realized that Clara had been introducing Gavin to her social circle, probably testing the waters to see how people would react to them as a couple. She'd been planning this exit strategy for months, carefully laying the groundwork for her new life. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. Sunday morning, I drove past Gavin's house, a modern colonial in an expensive subdivision. His BMW was in the driveway next to a white Honda Accord that probably belonged to his wife. I could see children's toys in the yard. Apparently, Gavin had kids, which made his behavior even more despicable. I parked at the end of the street and watched as the family left for what looked like church. Jennifer Miller was even prettier in person, and she was holding hands with 2 young children, maybe 6 and 8 years old. Gavin walked beside them, playing the role of devoted husband and father. The sight made me sick. This man was destroying 2 families for his own selfish pleasure, and he clearly thought he was untouchable. He was about to learn otherwise. That afternoon, I called my lawyer, Tom Bradley, who'd handled the legal work when I incorporated my construction business. I explained the situation without mentioning my plans for revenge. "I'm sorry, Eliot. This must be devastating," Tom said. "Do you want to file for divorce?" "Not yet. I need to understand my options first. What happens to our assets if Clara has been stealing money from our joint accounts?" If you can prove she was using marital funds for an extramarital affair, the court will take that into consideration during property division. Do you have documentation? I'm working on it. Good. Keep gathering evidence, but be careful not to do anything illegal. The last thing you want is to give her ammunition to use against you. I assured Tom I'd stay within legal boundaries, which was technically true. I wasn't planning to break any laws. I was just going to use the truth as a weapon. By Sunday evening, I had a complete intelligence file on both Clara and Gavin. I knew their routines, their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities. Most importantly, I understood their psychology. They thought they were smarter than everyone else, and they believed their secret was safe. They were wrong on both counts. Monday morning, I put the first phase of my plan into action. I called Henderson and Associates, the company where Clara worked, and asked to speak with her supervisor. "This is Margaret Hastings," a crisp voice answered. "Ms. Hastings, this is Eliot Brenner, Clara's husband. I'm calling because I'm concerned about her." "Oh? Is everything all right?" "I'm not sure. Clara told me she had approval for a week off to attend a wellness retreat, but she's been acting strangely lately. I'm worried she might be having some kind of breakdown." There was a pause. "Mr. Brenner, I'm confused. Clara didn't request any time off this week. She was supposed to be in the office today for an important client meeting." I let the silence stretch, as if I was processing this information. "She didn't request time off?" "No. And she hasn't called in sick either. We've been trying to reach her all morning." "This is very unlike Clara," I said, injecting worry into my voice. "She's always been so responsible about work. Mr. Brenner, if you hear from your wife, please have her call me immediately. Her absence today has put us in a very difficult position with our client." After I hung up, I smiled for the first time in days. Clara's perfect professional reputation was about to take its first hit. Next, I called Jennifer Miller at the hospital where she worked. I'd found her contact information through the hospital's online directory. "This is Jennifer Miller, pediatric nursing." "Mrs. Miller, you don't know me, but I think we need to talk. It's about your husband, Gavin." The line went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was cautious. "Who is this?" "My name is Eliot Brenner. I believe your husband is having an affair with my wife." I heard her sharp intake of breath. That's impossible. Gavin wouldn't—" "Mrs. Miller, I have evidence. Photos, text messages, hotel records. I'm not calling to hurt you. I'm calling because I think we both deserve to know the truth." "I can't. I'm at work. I can't talk about this now." "I understand. But when you're ready, I think we should meet. We're both victims here." I gave her my number and hung up, knowing I'd planted a seed that would grow into something much larger. The third call was to Mitch. "It's time to get creative," I told him. "What do you need, boss?" "Remember that construction project we finished last month? The one where the client stiffed us on the final payment?" "Yeah, that asshole Davidson. Still owes us $8,000. Well, it turns out Davidson's real estate agent was Gavin Miller. I think it's time we had a conversation about customer service." Mitch laughed. "I'll make some calls." By noon, I'd set 3 different fires burning, and Clara and Gavin had no idea their world was about to explode. My phone rang at 2:30 p.m. Clara's name appeared on the screen, and this time she sounded frantic. "Eliot, my boss called. She says I missed an important meeting. I never miss meetings." "That's strange, honey. Maybe there was a miscommunication about your retreat dates." "There was no miscommunication. I submitted my request weeks ago." I could hear the panic in her voice, and I felt a cold satisfaction. "Maybe you should call HR and straighten it out." "I can't call HR. I am HR. This is insane." "I'm sure it will work out," I said calmly. "How's the meditation going?" "The what?" "Oh, it's fine. Everything's fine. I have to go." She hung up abruptly, probably to call her office and try to do damage control. But it was too late. Her professional reputation was already cracking. That evening, Mitch called with an update. "I talked to some guys who work with Davidson. Turns out Gavin Miller has been cutting corners on property inspections, probably to close deals faster. One of the houses he sold last year had major foundation problems that weren't disclosed. Interesting, I said. Did you happen to mention this to anyone who might care about such things? Funny you should ask. I ran into Jake Morrison at the hardware store. You know Jake. He works for the state licensing board. We had a very educational conversation about real estate ethics. You're a good friend, Mitch. Just getting started, boss. As I went to bed that night, I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't experienced in years. Clara and Gavin thought they were playing a sophisticated game of deception, but they were amateurs compared to someone who'd spent decades solving complex problems and managing difficult people. They'd declared war on my marriage and my life. Now they were going to learn what it felt like when someone fought back. Tuesday morning brought the first signs that my strategy was working. Clara called at 7 a.m., her voice tight with stress. Eliot, something's wrong with our credit cards. I tried to pay for breakfast, and the card was declined. That's odd, I said, pouring myself coffee in the kitchen she'd never see again. Maybe there's a problem with the bank's computer system. I tried 3 different cards, and when I called the bank, they said the accounts had been frozen pending a security review. A security review? That sounds serious. This isn't funny, Eliot. I'm stranded here with no way to pay for anything. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Banks are so paranoid about fraud these days. I could practically hear her grinding her teeth. Can you go to the bank and sort this out? I'll try to get there today, but I've got 3 job sites to visit. You know how busy things are. This is an emergency. Is it, though? I mean, you're at a retreat center. Surely they can wait a day or 2 for payment. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. When she spoke again, her voice was dangerously quiet. What did you do, Eliot? I don't know what you mean, sweetheart. I'm just a simple contractor trying to keep our business running while you find yourself. She hung up without another word. An hour later, Jennifer Miller called. Mr. Brenner, I've been thinking about what you said yesterday. Can we meet? Of course. When and where? There's a coffee shop called Brewster's on Main Street. Can you meet me there at noon? I'll be there. Jennifer Miller was even more composed in person than I'd expected. She sat across from me in the coffee shop, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea, her eyes red from what had probably been a sleepless night. Show me, she said without preamble. I slid Clara's second phone across the table. The password is 1234. I watched her face as she scrolled through the messages and photos. Her composure cracked gradually, like ice under pressure, until tears started flowing silently down her cheeks. How long? She whispered. Based on these messages, about 4 months. But there might have been others before. She set the phone down carefully. I knew something was wrong. Gavin's been working late, taking weekend appointments, going to conferences that I couldn't find any record of online. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Are you? She looked at me with surprising sharpness. Or are you happy to have an ally? I respected her directness. Both, I suppose. I won't lie. I want to make them pay for what they've done. But I also think you deserve better than a husband who's using your children's college fund to pay for hotel rooms. Her eyes widened. How did you know about the college fund? I didn't, but your reaction just confirmed it. Men like Gavin always steal from the people who trust them most. Jennifer stared out the window for a long moment. When she looked back at me, something had hardened in her expression. What did you have in mind? Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just the truth, delivered in a way that ensures everyone knows exactly who they really are. I'm listening. I outlined my plan, watching her face carefully. When I finished, she was quiet for several minutes. My children, she said finally. I won't do anything that might hurt my children. I understand. But think about this. Do you want them growing up thinking this behavior is normal? That marriage vows don't mean anything? She closed her eyes. When do we start? That afternoon, Jennifer and I went to the Riverside Motel. She waited in my truck while I talked to the desk clerk again, this time with a different story. Remember me from the other day? I need a favor. That couple I was asking about. They're supposed to meet here Thursday afternoon, right? The kid nodded. Same time as always, 2 p.m. Perfect. I need you to call this number when they check in. I handed him a $50 bill and Jennifer's business card. Tell whoever answers that their husband is in room 237 with another woman. Can you do that? The kid pocketed the money. No problem, man. Cheating spouses suck. Wednesday morning, I received a call from Margaret Hastings at Clara's office. Mr. Brenner, I'm calling about your wife's situation. We still haven't heard from her, and frankly, her absence is becoming a serious problem. I'm worried too, Ms. Hastings. This behavior is completely unlike Clara. Has she been under any unusual stress lately? Personal problems? Health issues? Well, she has been spending a lot of money recently. New clothes, expensive dinners, things we can't really afford. I've been wondering if she might be having some kind of midlife crisis. I see. Mr. Brenner, I need to ask you something confidential. Has Clara ever mentioned a client or colleague named Gavin Miller? My pulse quickened, but I kept my voice steady. The name sounds familiar. Why do you ask? We've discovered some irregularities in how certain client files were handled, files that Clara had access to. What kind of irregularities? I can't discuss details, but let's just say that if Clara doesn't return to work immediately, we may have to involve our legal department. After she hung up, I called Mitch. How's our friend Gavin doing? Not great, boss. Turns out the state licensing board takes ethics violations very seriously. They've opened an investigation into his business practices. That must be stressful for him. Gets better. Remember how I mentioned he's been cutting corners on inspections? Well, one of his recent clients just discovered some major problems that weren't disclosed. They're talking about suing. Sounds like Gavin's having a rough week. It's about to get worse. I may have mentioned to a few people in the real estate community that he's been bragging about sleeping with married clients. You know how gossip spreads. I felt a grim satisfaction. Clara and Gavin had thought they were so clever, sneaking around behind everyone's backs. They'd never considered that their actions might have consequences beyond their little bubble of selfishness. Thursday morning, Clara called again, and this time she was furious. Eliot, I know you're behind this. The bank, the credit cards, everything. I don't know what you're talking about, Clara. I've been working 12-hour days trying to keep our business afloat. Don't lie to me. I'm coming home right now, and we're going to settle this. That's fine, honey. I'll be here waiting. But I wouldn't be waiting alone. Jennifer Miller and I had one more surprise planned for Clara and Gavin, and it was going to be the kind of revelation that would change everything. Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m., everything came together exactly as planned. I was sitting in my truck across from the Riverside Motel when Clara and Gavin pulled into the parking lot in his silver BMW. They looked relaxed, probably thinking they were about to enjoy another afternoon of passion before dealing with their respective problems at home. They had no idea that Jennifer Miller was parked 2 spaces away in her white Honda Accord, or that the desk clerk had her phone number with instructions to call the moment they checked in. I watched them walk into the motel lobby, Gavin's hand possessively on Clara's lower back. Even from a distance, I could see how comfortable they were together, how natural their intimacy appeared. It was like watching strangers, not my wife of 22 years and some random man she'd chosen over our marriage. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Are you ready for this? I texted back, let's do it. 5 minutes later, I saw Jennifer get out of her car and walk toward the motel. She moved with purpose, her nurse's training probably helping her stay calm in a crisis. I followed at a distance, wanting to witness the confrontation, but not interfere unless necessary. The desk clerk had done his job perfectly. When Jennifer walked into the lobby, he pointed toward the stairs without being asked. She climbed to the second floor, her footsteps echoing in the cheap hallway. I positioned myself at the bottom of the stairs, close enough to hear, but far enough away to avoid being seen immediately. Jennifer knocked on the door of room 237. "Gavin, I know you're in there. We need to talk." The silence that followed was deafening. I could imagine the panic inside that room, Clara and Gavin scrambling to understand how they'd been discovered. "Gavin!" Jennifer's voice was louder now, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to dealing with emergencies. "Open this door right now, or I'm calling the police." The door opened slowly, and Gavin appeared, wearing only a hotel bathrobe. His face was pale, his usual confidence completely shattered. "Jenny, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why you're here with another woman while I'm at home taking care of our children?" "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think." Jennifer pushed past him into the room, and I heard Clara's voice for the first time. "Who is this woman? Gavin, what's going on?" "Clara, meet Jennifer," I called out, climbing the stairs. "Jennifer, this is Clara, my wife." The look on Clara's face when she saw me was worth every moment of planning and preparation. She was sitting on the bed, wrapped in a sheet, her hair disheveled and her makeup smeared. For the first time in years, she looked vulnerable and uncertain. "Eliot, what are you doing here?" "I'm here for the same reason Jennifer is. To see the truth with my own eyes." Gavin tried to recover his composure. "Look, this is all very dramatic, but we're all adults here. Maybe we should discuss this calmly." "Calmly?" Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to discuss calmly how you've been stealing money from our children's college fund to pay for these little adventures?" Clara's eyes widened. "You told me you were divorced." "I told you what you wanted to hear," Gavin snapped, his mask finally slipping completely. "Just like you told your husband you were at a wellness retreat. That's different. I was protecting Elliot's feelings." "By stealing our money?" I asked quietly. "By lying to your boss? By destroying our marriage?" Clara stood up, clutching the sheet around herself. "You don't understand, Eliot. You never understood me. Gavin appreciates who I really am." "A cheater and a thief?" Jennifer asked. "Because that's who you really are, Clara. That's who you both are." Gavin tried one more time to control the situation. "Everyone just needs to calm down. Yes, Clara and I have feelings for each other, but we never meant for anyone to get hurt." "You never meant to get caught," I corrected. "There's a difference." I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos I'd taken of them entering the motel. "Smile, you two. These are going to look great on social media." "You can't do that!" Clara shrieked. "That's invasion of privacy." "Actually, it's not. You're in a public place, and I have every right to document my wife's adultery." "Eliot, please." Clara's voice changed, becoming pleading. "We can work this out. We can go to counseling, start over." "Start over?" I looked at her with genuine amazement. "Clara, you've been planning to leave me for months. You've stolen our money, lied to everyone we know, and humiliated me in ways I'm still discovering. What exactly would we be starting over with?" Jennifer stepped closer to Gavin. "And you? You stood in our church last Sunday, holding our children's hands, pretending to be a devoted family man. How long has this been going on?" "Jenny, please." "How long?" 4 months, Clara answered when Gavin remained silent. "But it wasn't supposed to happen this way. We fell in love and—" "You fell in lust," Jennifer corrected. "Love doesn't involve lying and stealing and destroying other people's lives." I looked around the cheap motel room, taking in the rumpled bed, the scattered clothes, the champagne bottle on the nightstand. "This is what you threw our marriage away for, Clara? This sleazy room with a married man who lies as easily as he breathes?" "You wouldn't understand," Clara said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You're just a contractor. You don't understand sophisticated relationships." That comment crystallized everything I'd been feeling. After 22 years of marriage, Clara still saw me as beneath her, too simple to understand her complex needs. "You're right," I said calmly. "I don't understand sophisticated relationships. I only understand honesty, loyalty, and keeping your promises. Apparently, those are old-fashioned concepts." I turned to Jennifer. "Are you ready to go? I think we've seen enough." She nodded, then looked at Gavin one more time. "Don't come home tonight. Don't come home until you're ready to explain to our children why Daddy doesn't live with them anymore." As we walked toward the door, Clara called out desperately, "Eliot, wait! We need to talk about this." I paused at the threshold. "No, Clara, we don't. You made your choice 4 months ago. Now you get to live with the consequences." "What consequences? What are you going to do?" I smiled, and for the first time in days, it was genuine. "I'm going to tell everyone the truth. Your boss, your friends, your family, everyone in town. I'm going to make sure that when people see you and Gavin together, they know exactly what kind of people you are." "You can't do that. It will ruin my career." "Your career?" I laughed. "Clara, you've been missing work to have an affair, using company resources to facilitate your relationship, and lying to your supervisor. Your career was already ruined. You just didn't know it yet." Gavin finally found his voice. "This is vindictive and petty. We're trying to build something meaningful together." "Build something meaningful?" Jennifer turned back to face him. "You're building it on the wreckage of 2 marriages and the pain of innocent children. That's not meaningful. That's selfish and destructive." As Jennifer and I left the motel, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For months, I'd been living with the vague sense that something was wrong with my marriage, but I'd blamed myself for not being successful enough, sophisticated enough, interesting enough for Clara. Now I understood that the problem was never with me. The problem was with a wife who valued excitement over loyalty and a man who valued conquest over integrity. But the confrontation was just the beginning. Clara and Gavin had humiliated me, stolen from me, and tried to make me feel like I was the problem. Now it was time for them to experience some consequences of their own. The real reckoning was just getting started. The next morning, I woke up in my own house for the first time in a week, and everything felt different. The silence that had once seemed lonely now felt peaceful. The space that had felt empty now felt clean, purged of the lies and deception that had been poisoning it for months. Clara had tried calling 17 times during the night. I turned off my phone after the first few calls and slept better than I had in months. At 8 a.m., I called Margaret Hastings at Henderson & Associates. "Ms. Hastings, this is Eliot Brenner. I have some information about my wife's absence that I think you need to know." "Mr. Brenner, we've been very concerned about Clara. Is she all right?" "She's fine physically, but I'm afraid the situation is more complicated than I initially understood. Clara hasn't been at a wellness retreat. She's been having an affair with a man named Gavin Miller, and she's been using company time and resources to facilitate this relationship." The silence on the other end stretched for nearly 30 seconds. "Mr. Brenner, these are very serious allegations. I have documentation, text messages, photographs, hotel receipts charged to company credit cards. Clara has been systematically lying to everyone, including her employer." "I see. Mr. Brenner, I need to ask you to come in today with whatever evidence you have. This matter will need to be investigated thoroughly." After I hung up, I called Sophie, Clara's sister. "Eliot, thank God you called. Clara's been trying to reach me all night, crying and talking about some kind of misunderstanding. What's going on?" "Sophie, I need to tell you something difficult. Clara has been having an affair for the past 4 months. Yesterday, the man's wife and I confronted them at a motel." "That's impossible. Clara would never—" "I have proof, Sophie. Photos, text messages, financial records. Clara has been lying to everyone, including you." The silence that followed was broken only by Sophie's sharp intake of breath. "Oh my God, Eliot, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I know you didn't. But I wanted you to hear it from me before Clara tries to spin this as somehow being my fault. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth. Clara and her boyfriend thought they were so clever, sneaking around behind everyone's backs. Now they get to face the consequences of their choices. By noon, I'd made 12 phone calls to Clara's friends, family members, and professional contacts. I didn't embellish or exaggerate. I simply told the truth and offered to provide evidence to anyone who wanted to see it. The response was swift and devastating. Clara's carefully constructed image as a successful, sophisticated professional began crumbling as word spread through her social and professional networks. Mitch called with an update on Gavin's situation. "Boss, you're not going to believe this. The state licensing board suspended his real estate license pending their investigation. And that client who's suing him? Turns out he's not the only one. 3 other families have come forward with similar complaints." "What about his marriage?" "Jennifer filed for divorce yesterday. She's also freezing all their joint accounts and filing for emergency custody of the kids." "Good for her." Gets better. Apparently, word about the affair has spread through the real estate community. His broker called this morning and terminated his employment. I felt a grim satisfaction. Gavin had thought he was untouchable, protected by his charm and connections. He was learning that actions have consequences, even for people who think they're special. That afternoon, Clara showed up at my house. I watched through the window as she tried her key, discovered the locks had been changed, and began pounding on the door. "Eliot! Open this door right now! We need to talk!" I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. She looked terrible, her hair unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes red from crying. "You bastard," she said without preamble. "You've destroyed my life." "I've destroyed your life? Clara, you destroyed your own life the moment you decided to start cheating. That's not what I mean, and you know it. You called my boss, my friends, my family. You've turned everyone against me. I told them the truth. If the truth makes them think less of you, maybe you should have considered that before you started lying to everyone." She pushed past me into the house, and I let her. I wanted this final confrontation to happen on my territory. "This is my house too," she declared, looking around at the space she'd abandoned for her affair. "Actually, it's not. I've filed for divorce, and since you've been stealing marital assets to fund your affair, my lawyer is confident I'll get to keep the house." Her face went white. "You can't do that." "I can, and I have. Clara, you made your choice. You chose Gavin over our marriage, excitement over stability, lies over truth. Now you get to live with those choices." "I made a mistake. People make mistakes, Eliot." "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store. What you did was a calculated betrayal that went on for months. You planned it, funded it with our money, and lied to everyone we know." She started crying, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of self-pity. "What am I supposed to do now? I've lost my job, my friends won't talk to me, and Gavin— What about Gavin? He says we need to take a break until things calm down. He says the situation is too complicated right now." I almost laughed. "Let me translate that for you, Clara. Gavin got what he wanted from you, and now that there are consequences, he's running away, just like he ran away from his wife and children." "That's not true. He loves me." "If he loved you, where is he right now? Why isn't he here supporting you through this difficult time?" She couldn't answer because we both knew the truth. Gavin had been playing a game, and now that the game was over, he'd moved on to his next conquest. "I want half of everything," Clara said, switching tactics. "The house, the business, our savings. You already took half our savings to fund your affair. And since you used marital assets for an extramarital relationship, the court isn't going to be sympathetic to your financial claims. You can't leave me with nothing." "I'm not leaving you with nothing, Clara. You're leaving yourself with nothing. Every choice you made led to this moment." She looked around the house one more time, taking in the life she'd thrown away for a few months of excitement with a married man who'd already abandoned her. "I hate you," she said quietly. "No, you don't. You hate yourself for making such terrible choices. You hate that you got caught. You hate that your sophisticated plan fell apart. But you don't hate me. You just need someone to blame for the consequences of your own actions." She walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. "This isn't over, Eliot." "Yes, it is. It's been over for months. You just didn't bother to tell me." After she left, I sat in my kitchen and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete peace. The woman who'd shared my life for over 2 decades was gone, but the anxiety and confusion that had been plaguing me were gone too. I'd spent months wondering what was wrong with me, why I wasn't enough for Clara, why our marriage felt so hollow. Now I understood that the problem was never with me. It was with a woman who valued appearances over substance and excitement over commitment. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Jennifer Miller. "Eliot, I wanted to thank you for yesterday. I know it was difficult, but I needed to see the truth for myself." "How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected. My lawyer says the divorce should be straightforward, especially with all the evidence we have. And my children, they're resilient. They'll be better off without a father who thinks marriage vows are optional." "And Gavin?" "Moved out yesterday. He's staying at some extended stay hotel, probably looking for his next victim. But word has gotten around about what kind of man he is. I don't think he'll find it as easy to charm married women now that everyone knows his pattern." After we hung up, I realized that Jennifer and I had both emerged stronger from this experience. We'd been betrayed by people we trusted, but we'd refused to be victims. We'd fought back, demanded the truth, and held our spouses accountable for their choices. Clara and Gavin had thought they were so sophisticated, so much smarter than their boring, loyal spouses. They'd underestimated us completely, assuming we'd never figure out their game or fight back effectively. They were wrong about everything. As the sun set on what had been one of the most difficult weeks of my life, I felt something unexpected: gratitude. I was grateful that Clara had revealed her true character before I wasted any more years on our marriage. I was grateful that I'd found the strength to fight back instead of accepting the role of victim. Most of all, I was grateful that I'd learned I was stronger and more resourceful than I'd ever imagined. Clara and Gavin had destroyed 2 marriages, but they'd also freed 4 people from relationships built on lies and deception. Jennifer and I would rebuild our lives on foundations of truth and integrity, while Clara and Gavin would have to live with the consequences of their selfishness. In the end, that seemed like justice.